A young woman stood in the shadows of a dark mining tunnel. Her clothes were caked with mud, her face marked with scratches. In her calloused hands, she held a rusted pickaxe. Her eyes stared blankly into the void, as if life had long since abandoned her. In the cold, damp silence of Titan's underground, her mind drifted back to a different time. Back to the days when she was still a nurse at Cho-Rei Hospital and back when she still had light and hope. If only she hadn't made that one fatal mistake. It began with a coin, a bet, a dream of quick returns. All the money she'd saved after years of hard work vanished in mere hours. And then came the loans, banks, black credit, any source she could find to win it back. It felt like something was whispering to her, pushing her deeper. Something unseen. Something not human. And now, regret came too late. Ahead of her lay days of forced labor, torture, and survival on the edge of death. She had stopped trying to make sense of it. She had surrendered herself to the machine. But she still remembered the moment her life was sentenced. The year 2050. By then, humanity had extended its presence far beyond the Milky Way. The darkest corners of space no longer belonged to the void. They belonged to the system, the forgotten, and the expendable. Sara sat motionless inside a biometric scanning pod. Her eyes were locked on the screen, which displayed endless streams of code flowing like a cold river. She didn't remember how she had ended up here. A promotional message, a fast loan app, a digital signature she placed with a half-asleep finger after a long night shift. Then came the voice, cold, mechanical, and absolute. Planetary credit debt, 1.8 billion. Repayment overdue. As per Article 31C of the Auxiliary Labor Policy, citizen Sara, ID 04AZ119E, will be transferred to the Titan Mining Unit for debt recovery via live labor contribution. No, I never... Sara tried to rise, but the restraints locked her down like invisible chains. Consent was registered via micro-account contract signature, the AI droned on. You are in violation. The protocol has been activated. 20 minutes later, Sara was loaded onto a transport ship. No one spoke. No one cared. She sat among hundreds of others, some conscious, most sedated, and partially cryo-frozen with breathing tubes attached. An old man muttered, "Why do they take me here? I'm just a homeless man. I didn't do anything wrong." She noticed that the people dragged onto this transport all seemed to carry secrets of their own. Outside the tiny porthole window, a faint red dot emerged among the stars. Titan. But it wasn't the romantic moon of Saturn from the old books. This was Sanitation Titan, a planetary-scale dump for technological waste, where death didn't need murder, only time. No one spoke on the ship. Only the low hum of the ion engines pierced the silence, propelling them through deep space. Pale blue lights flickered weakly from the ceiling, as if trying to preserve the last shreds of humanity left in them. Sara sat on a cold metallic seat, her wrists loosely bound with magnetic restraints. In front of her stretched a row of heads bowed low, tired, hollow, or resigned. Some shivered. Some had stopped breathing, frozen solid in their seats. ATX 091 was never meant for people. It was designed to carry biological cargo. And they, the debt-ridden citizens, had been reclassified as such. A small screen lit up before her, playing a worn-out advertisement. A second chance awaits you. Rebuild your life with the Off-World Labor Rehabilitation Program. Just 15 years of service, and you'll be debt-free, reintegrated into society, and... Sara said nothing. But something stirred inside her. Not fear. Instinct. Alertness. On the main screen at the front of the cabin, Titan gradually took shape. A tarnished bronze sphere, surrounded by swirling electromagnetic clouds and spirals of tech debris, raging like a metal storm. Sara stared ahead. She didn't know what awaited her. Only one thing was certain: she had stepped into darkness. And on the other side wasn't light. It was a version of herself she had never known. The shuttle doors hissed open and Sara, along with dozens of others, was shoved out like crates of cargo. The winds on Titan howled like metal scraping against bone. Dust clouds were so thick they swallowed movement whole. The ground trembled beneath her feet, as if something alive beneath was stirring, or waiting to wake. They were herded through a rusted steel tunnel into the primary containment zone, a place ironically named Zone Zero. No windows, no natural light. Only the occasional electric crackle echoing through the air and the screams of those in pain. A floating drone hovered toward them, its voice cold and emotionless. Welcome to Sanitation Titan. That first night, Sara couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard whispers, like distant radio signals, interwoven with memories that weren't hers. A massive black stone door, floating glyphs glowing in midair, and a woman with piercing, luminous green-blue eyes who looked just like her. Sara jolted awake, drenched in cold sweat. She didn't know if it was a dream or if Titan was speaking to her. The next morning, they were sorted into work teams and assigned to Extraction Zone Level 3, where even a loose screw could detonate, and leftover biotech from the last century still reacted violently. Rows of laborers were excavating a mining shaft, searching for gold or whatever tech scrap could be salvaged. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the tunnels. It was lunchtime, dragging Sara back to the harsh reality. Meals were scarce. Many begged for more, only to be met with electric lashes. Even water was rationed with strict limits. People were slowly breaking down. That day, a new batch of inmates arrived. They resisted the guards' abuse. One tried to fight back. He screamed he would escape, but was immediately overwhelmed, beaten until unconscious, then chained up. A mechanical beast, a metal horse-like robot, dragged his body across the yard for hours, grinding him into the dirt, leaving trails of blood and agony. Everyone saw him being dragged, but no one said a word. Because survival here meant not getting involved. Because most could barely keep themselves alive. As usual, Sara sat alone during mealtime. But this time, an older woman came to sit beside her. She asked, "What's your name?" "Sara. I've watched you for days. Why are you so calm? Panic won't help anyone. Do you know anything about this planet or why we were brought here?" "If I knew, I'd have found a way home already." Suddenly, a loud bell rang through the dark pit. It was lunchtime, pulling Sara back to reality. The meals were meager, and many, driven by hunger, tried to ask for more, only to be met with electric whips lashing across their bodies. Even drinking water was rationed. Everyone seemed to be gradually running out of strength. Today, another group of newcomers arrived. They reacted violently to the abuse from the guards. One man tried to escape, even attempted to fight back. But what awaited him was brutal torture. He was beaten unconscious and tightly bound. Then, a mechanical iron horse, robotic in its movements, dragged his limp body around the camp, inflicting agonizing pain. For those who disobeyed, this place always had merciless methods to suppress them. Everyone could only watch as the young man was dragged across the ground by the running horse's reins, but no one said a word, simply because they could barely take care of themselves. As usual, Sara chose to eat alone. But unexpectedly, a woman came and sat next to her. The woman asked, "What's your name?" "Sara. I've been observing you for days. Why are you so calm?" "Panic doesn't help anything, ma'am." "Do you know anything about this planet, or why we were taken here?" "If I knew everything, I'd have already found a way home." Then the bell rang again. Their lunch break was over. They had 10 minutes to reach their designated work area. Just one wrong word or a glance held too long could get you reported by surveillance drones, or worse, dragged into the black zone, a place from which no one ever returns. Sara looked at her curled-up body. Her ribs were now clearly visible. She had counted them one night to prove to herself that she still existed. Sleep brought no relief. Even in dreams she was digging. Hands covered in rust and ash, her ears filled with whispers she couldn't yet decipher. Every few days, someone collapsed. It began with tremors, shaking from dehydration, exhaustion, or biological contamination seeping into the soil. If they were lucky, they'd be dragged away. If not, they'd be left where they fell, becoming part of the dust, just another body slowly crushed beneath Titan's floor. Here, It was completely normal to accidentally brush against a decomposing corpse during the day. A woman screamed while convulsing. A guard shoved a baton into her throat, silencing her. Then her body was dragged to the lab, where some unknown substance would be injected into her. People had grown so accustomed to such scenes that they barely glanced before returning to their work. When Sara heard that woman's cries, she once again realized just how powerless she was in the vastness of it all. She could do nothing but endure in silence as the tortured figure disappeared from view. Inside the impact-resistant glass headquarters, where most of the leaders and overseers operated, Sara stood, staring at one of the massive boards covered in paperwork. Of course, these were the coerced life-selling contracts, or perhaps some kind of research documentation. The drill jammed again. Sara was now in Shaft 7C, a deep vertical tunnel riddled with unstable synthetic alloy veins and decaying data conduits. The walls vibrated faintly from residual heat, a strange thing since this zone was supposedly decommissioned decades ago. The foreman barked orders at the hand-digging team. No one questioned the commands. Questions meant pain. Sara picked up her pickaxe and swung. The wall groaned. On the fourth strike, something cracked. Not the usual brittle rust layer, but something softer beneath. A hiss escaped from the wall, not mechanical, but organic, like breathing. She froze. The others kept digging. None of them noticed the change in the air, how it suddenly felt warmer, or how their tools began to hum as if charged by an unseen current. But Sara felt it. She always felt it. She pressed her ear to the surface. A pulse. Rhythmic, slow, alive. The next hour passed in silence. Sara marked the spot with a scrap of steel and went back to work, but her thoughts remained tethered to that mysterious rhythm. There was something beneath them, something not recorded on any map, not mentioned in any protocol. That night, she returned. That night, Sara returned to her sleeping unit, her mind consumed by the mysterious spot in the mine. Curiosity gnawed at her. She needed to understand what lay beneath. However, entering the shaft alone would require a guard's key and the right opportunity. During the day, under the scorching artificial light that mimicked a long-forgotten sun, Sara began to study the guards with keen intent. She noticed one in particular, Eric, who was tall and broad-shouldered and had a habit of teasing young female workers. He often let his guard down, distracted by his arrogance. A ring of keys swung from his belt, and Sara waited for her moment. She made her move by subtly flirting with him. With just a few gestures, Eric's eyes lit up. When he was completely distracted, Sara pushed him gently against a dirt wall. Her hand inched toward the keys when, suddenly, another guard appeared. "This isn't a playground. Get back to work," he barked. "Eric, focus on your duties." Her plan collapsed. Later that day, as she dug into the dusty earth, Sara couldn't stop thinking about the keys. Each swing of her pickaxe echoed with frustration. Then chaos erupted. A scuffle broke out among a group of prisoners, prompting 3 nearby guards to rush in and intervene. Seizing the moment, Sara slipped behind Eric, moving naturally. Just another worker trying to stay clear of the turmoil. She brushed lightly against him, offering a quick smile in apology. Eric didn't even notice. In a flash, her hand darted into action. The ring of keys slipped off his belt and into her sleeve with a muffled clink. She kept walking, steady, her breath shallow. No one saw a thing. That night, cloaked in silence broken only by distant moans and the soft drone of machinery, Sara crept from her bunk. Her thin frame, wrapped in gray rags, blended into the shadows. She waited until the guards were asleep, then made her way to the rusted gate of Shaft 7C. The keys worked. Moments later, she was inside the mine, descending toward the marked spot. She clutched a long, sturdy rod she had hidden days before. At the designated section of the soft wall, she raised the rod and began to pry. Dust and dirt flaked away with each strike. Not just loose rock, but something denser, packed like ash-laced soil. Eventually, the wall gave way. A glint. Gold. Layer after layer. Glimmering yellow veins streaked through the rock like frozen fire. Unprocessed, untouched, Pure. Sara staggered back, overwhelmed. Her thoughts raced. What could she do with this? Who could she trust? What if the guards found out? This kind of treasure could change everything or destroy her faster than she could imagine. Now it all made sense. The relentless labor, the constant surveillance, the secretive administrators. Titan wasn't just a prison. It was a gold mine, literally. She wasn't ready. But she had to find a way to hide some of it, for the day she would return home. If she didn't, someone else would discover it, and the Titan overlords would force them all to mine it to the last grain. With trembling hands, Sara covered the breach with soil and debris, masking any trace of disturbance. Then, using the rod, she scratched a discreet symbol into the ground, a small triangle. She didn't allow herself to linger. Silently and carefully, she locked the mine gates behind her, retracing her steps like a ghost. By the time the first drone stirred for morning patrol, Sara was already back in her sleeping cell, curled tightly beneath her threadbare blanket. But her eyes were wide open,